Well, we're 15 games into the season, and we're happy to welcome you to the panel presented by Sportsnet. I'm Paige Martin, joined by Jack Michaels and Cam Moon. And guys, let's start by talking about the start of the Oilers season. They've began 6-5-4. What are some of the things, Jack, maybe I'll start with you, that you've noticed through these first 15 games?
A general lack of emotion during the games. I don't think this has been, a start that I necessarily am surprised by, but at the same time, I think you take a look at the Oilers, and they've been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. They're also, in the first 14 games, facing teams that finish below them in the standings. I think any sort of lags in Edmonton's play is as much up here as anything physical on the ice. The players know conceptually that they'd like to get off to a better start, and by record they have. But I think beyond that, motivation is always going to be an issue for a club that keeps going deep into the playoffs when it comes to games in October and November. That's just a cold, hard reality. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it ideal, but it's just the truth. There hasn't been a fight in 15 games. Not that I'm a Neanderthal and, need 7 fights in the first 15 games to tell me that the team's competing. They're competing, but they're also mindful of the fact that there are a lot more important games ahead of them. And as much as we'd like to say it, those aren't necessarily in the immediate ahead of them, even with a highlight reel type of opponent in Colorado tonight, or rather Saturday. I think Edmonton will be ready to go. I think those teams get their attention more often than others. But ultimately, results matter less at this time of year. That's just the truth.
And does that make it a little bit potentially hopeful for the fact that we've seen the Oilers start in similar ways in previous years, but that it can be that slow burn because you know that this team can turn it on when they need to?
Yeah, absolutely. And further to Jack's point, I think it has lacked a little bit of emotion. And as a result, you're seeing mistakes that are being made that are mental mistakes. And because I realize, I think sometimes those mistakes get made because the emotion level isn't high. And I totally get it. You can't replicate the Stanley Cup playoffs in October. It's very difficult. And you've got new faces, and you've got players out of the lineup, and you're playing a bunch of games on the road. So those don't add up to instant success, but it's trying to manufacture that emotional level so that the attention to detail gets better and that maybe a pinch is a little bit better. Maybe there's better backtracking from the forwards and not resulting in odd man rushes that are resulting in goals against. I mean, the power plays look good, but you look at the amount of talent you put on the ice, that's going to happen. It's those little details that have been biting the Oilers in the backside.
And Paige, to further Cam's point, I would say this. You aren't old enough to remember this. In fact, you weren't born when it happened. But Cam and I remember well Buffalo going back to one Super Bowl after another. The third time, they didn't bother winning the division. They got in. They ended up winning the AFC Championship game in Miami, went back to the Super Bowl. It's just that kind of thing. Now, certainly we hope that history doesn't repeat itself in the terms of, the 4 falls of Buffalo. I don't want to see that documentary being made about the Oilers 20 years from now. But it's just one of those things when you've got a veteran group. I think the regular season matters less and less. Mm-hmm. And especially the top players, they've already achieved anything they could have ever dreamed of when it comes to regular season and individual goals.
You mentioned new faces, Cam, and I want to highlight some of the new faces because Andrew Mangiapane, we have Jack Roslovic, you have even the new young guys in Isaac Howard as well as Matt Savoy, someone like David Tomaszek. This new energy that we heard a lot through preseason, that youthful energy would be something that kind of invigorates this team, makes it exciting on long road trips, every day coming to the rink. What's been your kind of maybe early assessment of how they've been slowly finding their place in this lineup?
Well, I think it does inject some life into the lineup, absolutely. But it also injects a bit of chaos in that these players are adapting to new teammates, a new city, new systems, and there's going to be adjustments. In the case of Savoy, Howard, and Tomaszek, you're adjusting to a whole new level. So that's even more so. So yeah, it's really important to to kind of weather that, and then having guys like Mangiapane come in, Roslovic. I mean, Roslovic really starting to hit his stride here, which is no surprise. I mean, he's a skilled player. Same with Andrew Mangiapane. Those guys are finding their way, so I see positives there.
I think Roslovic in particular has the kind of game that blends very well with Edmonton's existing superstars. He's slick. He's slick in anything he does. He's slick in avoiding hits. He's slick in the way he skates. He plays with the requisite speed to keep up with those guys, and he has vision to rival what those guys bring. And that's the biggest thing. When you're speaking the same kind of language that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, I'm not suggesting for a moment Roslovic's at their level in terms of production, but he can see the same kind of things they do. I've been really impressed. I wonder if, I think for Edmonton ultimately to have a highly successful regular season. And what I mean by that is not just kind of limping in as the third seed or a wild card too, which the Oilers, I mean, that would be their baseline in terms of all they want to be is in the tournament. As we saw last year, it didn't matter. The only series where they had a home ice, they lost. Every other series, they won. Home ice in the playoffs, sure, it's nice. I mean, I understand why Rogers Place wants it, but bottom line is it doesn't really matter to this group of players. But for them to have a more successful regular season, I think the production's got to match the potential. In other words, cold facts, a Roslovic, a Mangiapane, a Howard, a Tomashik, a Savoy, and this may sound a little like two of those guys need to have either a 25-20 season or a 20-25. They got to have a 45 to 50 point season with mid-20s in goals. Two of them have to do that. Now, that may sound ambitious, but if you want to have a really good regular season, that's what it's going to take. And I think, the veteran players obviously would seemingly have the advantage. But one of the things that Stan Bowman said have really stuck with me. What will this team look like in March or April? Is it possible that we saw what we did right before the pandemic in the first 2 months of 2020 when Kyler Yamamoto really popped? That's what I'm going to be curious to see, whether a Howard or Savoy can get hot and have a final couple of months that you're like, whoa, now we've got a team on a different level.
So from new faces to a couple familiar faces that we haven't been able to see in a while, that's Zach Hyman and Mattias Janmark. Upcoming, based on what Chris Knobloch has said, this upcoming 7-game road trip, can we see them on that? Potentially, we hope so. But that's something that's also going to add more production, more speed that the Oilers are looking forward to having back.
Yeah, and putting players into spots that maybe they're more comfortable with as well. So it changes the dynamic of the lineup. You add skill, especially in Zach Hyman's case. It might take him a little bit to get up to speed, which is totally understandable. So there's that. But when you add a guy to your top six and a guy that does as well as he does as a net front presence on the power play, although the power play is going very well anyway, that's nothing but positive. So yeah, and maybe you can shelter the minutes of some of the newer players that have been thrust into a situation that at times could be uncomfortable. I don't know, but I just think that when you're adding veteran presence and skill into the lineup, I see nothing but positives.
Well, Mattias Janmark, number one, is going to help out on the PK. I think he brings a level of speed. I actually would not necessarily disagree, but I'd augment what Cam is saying. I think a guy like Janmark takes 12 or 13 minutes, and then Hyman, for me, it's not so important to shelter the young players' minutes. For me, I still want to, I got to be honest with you, I want to take some minutes away from McDavid and Draisaitl. Janmark might take a few of those away on penalty killing, and Hyman can lessen the load. I mean, there's one guy that for an extended period of time has maximized what Edmonton wanted when they brought in a winger, and that's Zach Hyman. Vander Kane did it, spring of 22, but then injuries precluded him from doing it the rest of his tenure in Edmonton in terms of maximizing the ceiling. Pat Maroon did it. 1 year he scored 27 goals with Connor McDavid. I mean, they couldn't have dreamed that would happen, but that's what happened. Zach Hyman has done it. I mean, Zach Hyman is a guy that, when I said it'd be nice if 2 of the 5, I know Zach Hyman's going to do it because he's done it. and he's done it year after year after year. So it's a major, and those are both two glue guys in the locker room. Janmark, there's not a more popular guy in the room. Zach Hyman, same thing. Zach Hyman there's no variation in play. There's no variation in mood. And there's no variation in production. That's the other thing. So they're getting two really consistent presences, not only what they bring on the ice, but what they bring to the room.
Well, it's safe to say that there is plenty to look forward to, including an upcoming 7-game road trip. How are you guys feeling about that one?
It's southern climes. I'm feeling pretty good about it on the first day.
We'll be okay.
So.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
You also got Buffalo as well, so it'll be...
Crawling along on the hen day, I'm feeling great about it, to be honest with you.
And we're feeling great. The Oilers are back for 2 games here at Rogers Place. It all starts tomorrow, Saturday night, here against the Colorado Avalanche.
Look at that growth.